Welcome back, everyone. It's EvanHusa57 here. I'm back on NeverWinter on the Xbox One, this time with mod 10.5, and finally, the long-awaited, updated Paladin build. So this is my Retribution build, this is my own build, and this is basically trying to make the Paladin viable as a tank again. So the Paladin's been nerfed several times, that's why the last build that I put out was in mod 7. And there is some changes, actually quite a few changes that have been made, so please bear with me. I'm trying to put this out at the start of our next double refinement event here on the Xbox One, so anyone following this build will have a chance to adequately refine their enchantments and artifacts. With that being said, at the very end of the video, I will give you a little bit of gameplay as the class. I'm going to go through and show you how to build it and what I prefer to use. Now, this might change depending upon what you're doing, and I'll let you know I'm not as fond of the tank paladin as I once was because of the nerfs that have occurred to this class. So let's go ahead and start building it. Now, the whole point of my paladin build used to be straight tank and DPS, almost a perma bubble. Unfortunately, to make the build viable, well, straight DPS and tanking are not exactly the same thing. Very, very difficult to do. So I've gone more towards a tank buff build, still keeping aside of damage. With all that said, you don't do a ton of damage per hit, and most of your damage is going to come from your at-wills. But we can still do a decent amount of damage. As you can see, you're not going to hit as hard as other classes, especially right now. What I'm doing is I'm using my tank setup of powers. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the stats. And now this is with my companion procced. I've got about 33k power, 5k crit, 6k armor pen. So my armor pen's a little bit low right there. My lifesteal's a little bit low, but the main stats we're going for is power, recovery, and then for, of course, defense deflect. That's what we're going for. Armor pen's important, crit's okay, but not really 100% necessary. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to build it. I'm going to start off with the feats and paragon points. Now you'll notice my build is for Oath of Protection, which is the tank path, and human. If you are not human, it's up to you. You might have a few differing points than me. So you'll notice I put everything into Constitution and Charisma. I used to split the points between Constitution, Maxed, and Charisma and Wisdom. I stopped putting points into the Wisdom for the crit chance because crit is not going to be as helpful as it once was. And I put them all into Charisma because I actually got that crit chance off of my feats. So you notice that the feats changed up a little bit. Under Heroic, Tier 1, we have Divine Action, which is only 3 of 5 now as opposed to 5 of 5. So you regenerate 3% of your maximum AP. And this was a bit of a tough call, but I figured that extra 2% of your maximum action points is not really going to make or break the class. Weapon Mastery is a trap feat. Don't waste your time with it, because that 3% critical hit chance we're actually going to get more of later on. Toughness, that's a no-brainer for the Paladin. 3 of 3 on that, 9% more HP. You absolutely have to have it. Tier 2. Light Shield. Your damage resistance is increased. That is a trap feat as well. Skip it. We get enough defense from our gear and companions that defense can literally be overrated. Exemplar's Haste, 3 of 3. Your encounter powers recharge 6% faster. This is going to be a key move. Wrathful Strikes. Your at-will powers deal up to 6% more damage. Tier 3 Heroic. Dominating Presence. Useless. If people are not already close enough for you, there's no point in you increasing your aura radius. Impassioned Pleas, 3 of 3. You regenerate Divine Call energy 6% faster. This is also key. Divine Attunement. You receive 6% more healing from spells. Useless. 0 of 3. Steadfast in the Tier 4 Heroics. Each point of Constitution now grants an additional 2.5% maximum HP. Well, since we fully spec into Constitution, hell yes, 5 of 5. Divine Wisdom, useless. We're not healing. We don't need that. Force of Will, however, is where my last 3 points went, as opposed to in the beginning Tier 1s. Each point of Charisma now increases your critical hit chance by an additional 1%. 3 of 3 on that one. So basically, every point of Charisma ups my crit chance by 1%. Now you do see that my feats have changed slightly in the Paragon path, so go ahead and save your Heroics. I have Swift Flash. This one is not really that useful. When you're struck by a foe, you have a chance to trigger Flash, granting you increased movement speed for 4 seconds. The effect can only happen once every 10 seconds. It is worth it to put 1 point into that, just so that if you're pulling with a group and you do get hit, you can try and keep up with the rest of your faster classes, but not 100% necessary. Bound by Light. Your control strength is increased by 8%, because I have 4 or 5 out of that. Now, we don't really control, but there is one key power called Templar's Wrath, and that stuns enemies. So this will increase the length of the stun. Pretty important now that they're beating you down damn quick. Tier 2 under the Justice Paragon. Furious Reversal, useless. Complete waste. Don't even bother with it. Flash of Light. Your encounter powers have a 25% chance to reduce the cooldown of your nearby allies' encounter powers by 10%. That's pretty good for a buff. So that's going to be where we're going to help buff our team a little bit. We'll take that. Radiant Champion. Your very presence inspires your allies. When you have at least 2 other allies within 30 feet of you, all of you gain 25% more movement speed and 5% cooldown reduction. That's awesome. Take it. 5 of 5. Stem the Tide. Useless. 0 of 5. Echoes of Light. Your at-will powers have a 10% chance to trigger Echo. Echo makes the next encounter power instantly recharge all other encounter powers. The effect can only occur once every 15 seconds. So it's not as good as it used to be, but in my opinion, it's still worth it. 5 of 5. Beacon of Hope. Useless. 0 of 5. Now here's where the points start to change from the Mod 7 build. Purifying Fire. Your at-will powers apply Purifying Fire to your foes. Purifying Fire stacks up to 5 times, dealing 10% weapon damage each time a stack is applied. This damage is doubled for each stack applied to the target. It lasts 60 seconds, but is removed when you strike the target with an encounter power. This is where a large chunk of our damage is going to come from because, well, our damage comes from at-wills. Now, I used to put a point in Prism, just to help out the team so that, when you were in Sanctuary, you could heal everyone around you. At this point, that point in there is not warranted because Prism has been changed so that heal over time effects do not trigger Prism. Pretty much pointless right now. And it also creates lag in Tiamat, so forget it. Then, of course, 1 of 1 in Vengeful Judge, which is the capstone. And when you use your Divine Call, you proc Judge on yourself for 10 seconds, which increases the damage that you deal by 35%, as well as reducing the cooldown on your currently recharging powers by 35%. Your encounter powers have a chance to immediately grant you a charge of Divine Call. Pretty useful. Now, the remaining points are going to go down in the Light Paragon. Gifts of Light, 4 of 5. You heal for an additional 8%. We don't really heal, but this helps out with Sanctuary. Now, I also took this Seraphim. When you take damage, you have a chance to gain Seraphim for 8 seconds. Seraphim increases the strength of your heals by 3%. The reason why I put this as 1 point is I could either gain 2% more heal strength with Gifts of Light or gain that additional extra 1% for a total of 3% by taking Seraphim. So I did that. Light Touched, useless. We don't have healing spells, so there's no point. Warrior's Bastion. This is actually a good one. And in the current mod, needed. You gain 10% more defense from your equipment. 5 of 5 on that one. Your last 5 points, or gifts. Allies within 30 feet of you gain 25% of your power. They must remain within 30 feet of you for at least 6 seconds to gain this buff. So people need to stay close to the Paladin. The problem with this buff is it does not scale off of buffs. This is your base power. So drinking a power potion, proccing companions, camaraderie, companions friendship, anything like that does not affect this power rating. At this time, at least. For mod 10.5, I tested it with friends. It doesn't work. So it's only your base power, but the whole point is so that we can buff our teammates. Now, go ahead and confirm your feats. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and take powers into account. Now, this will change depending upon what you're doing, so keep that in mind. Lower level content. Left trigger is going to be Radiant Strike. This is your secondary at will. What you want to use this for is to charge into a group of enemies and hit the entire group. For your single target daily, if you're going to DPS, I recommend using Divine Judgment, LBMY. Now, if you're running with a good team, you're going to want to run Aura of Courage as your personal, and then Aura of Wisdom as your second personal. So Aura of Courage lets you and your allies do more damage. Aura of Wisdom, for you and your allies within 30 feet of you, they gain increased recharge speed. Pretty damn cool. Now, your primary at will, you can use Oath Strike, because as Oath of Protection, the final strike of the power forces the target to attack you for 3 seconds. The problem with this attack, you're less tanky with this attack. In mod 10 or in mod 7, I used Shielding Strike. On your final strike, you gain a shield that absorbs damage. The shield stacks for up to 3 times and lasts up to 8 seconds. I prefer Shielding Strike. It's just a personal preference, but I like that little bit of extra damage reduction. So you can use Oath Strike or Shielding Strike as your primary. It doesn't matter. Now, for tank, mostly tanking, we're going to take Templar's Wrath. That's a must. It's going to be X. And you gain temporary HP equal to 300% of the damage that you dealt. Then Binding Oath. Now, Binding Oath is no longer as good as it once was. Used to be, you were basically immune for a set amount of time. All that damage built up and burst. You took 50% of it. Redirected 20 to the enemies. Now, for 5 seconds, nearby enemies are forced to attack you. You gain a shield for 100% of your maximum HP. When this effect expires or the shield is depleted, foes within a 30-foot area take 100% of the damage that was taken by the shield, and you take 50% of that damage. The problem with this ability is it does not make you immune. It basically gives you a short amount of time where you take reduced damage. So for a third power, I used to use Divine Touch, because it was something that you could do damage with, and you could get a little bit of incoming damage reduction. It doesn't work that well in this mod. You can still use it. I don't like it that much. I would recommend using Absolution or Circle of Power. Circle of Power will help you tank. Relentless Avenger will help you get your action points back faster. Now, when you're soloing content, you will want to swap Aura of Wisdom for Aura of Solitude. That's why you see I have points in there. Don't worry, you only have 70 points or whatever at your maximum level. You can get more power points by over-leveling over level 70 or through the Sharandar campaign. As you see, I have 94 power points. As your primary daily, you're going to use Divine Protector. An optional version for Divine Protector, because it is no longer as good as it once was, is to use Shield of Faith. If your AP gain is low, you can use Shield of Faith instead of Divine Protector, because neither one blocks 100% of damage to teammates, so teammates still have to stay the hell out of red. If you're running with a bad team or a very low-geared team, you may wish to swap out Aura of Wisdom for Aura of Truth. Foes within 30 feet deal 5% less damage. This is a pretty good one to have. It just depends on the team that you're running with. So you're going to have to use your judgment and swap out powers depending upon what dungeon you're in and what team you're running with. Makes it a little bit more complicated than it used to be. Now let's go ahead and cover gear. Remember, this is not completely endgame gear. This is not even all close to endgame gear. So there's still a lot of room for improvement. But this is what I would recommend for most of your gameplay. Now, the new relic armor is adequate if you want to farm it. I don't have the time to farm it and restore it on multiple characters, so I'm going to go with the set that I prefer, and I'm going to make this elemental. As you can see, I have one piece elemental already, but I did not have the resources to make the full set elemental. So what I went with is 2 pieces of Dragonflight, and I went with 2 pieces of Dragonflight for the bonus on it. 2-piece set gives you 2,000 maximum HP. So I have the helm, which gives me HP, crit, recovery, and defense. The gauntlets, which give me HP, power, recovery, defense. And I do have these gauntlets, the ones that are elemental. I have them reinforced with a plus 50 recovery kit. So you will want to reinforce your gear when you are ready, but you want to wait till later on to do it, because depending on what you have, you might want power kits, you might want recovery kits, or you might want lifesteal kits. It's a toss-up. Then I use 2 pieces of Dusk. So I have the chest plate that gives me HP, defense, deflect, and regeneration. Doesn't help me to deal damage, but helps me to tank. And then I have the boots that give me HP, power, crit, and defense. Now, the reason why I went with 2 parts Dusk as opposed to full Dragonflight or any of the new gear for that matter, the item level 150 gear, I was just very unimpressed with the 150 gear stats, so I wanted to stick with this gear and make it elemental. Now, you'll notice if you look at the Dusk set, 1 and 2-piece set, when you're soloing by yourself and not in a party, you regenerate 2,000 hit points every 3 seconds. So this is very helpful when doing your dailies and stuff like that. When in a party, you gain 5,000 HP, 1,000 power, and 1,000 defense. That's pretty nice to have. Now, there's a couple different sets for shirt and pants that you can go with. It's personal preference. The new Everfrost set is a good set, but you lose power recovery on it. So it's a little bit annoying unless you really want that deflect bonus. So I chose to stick with my Warrior's Gemmed Exquisite Elemental. And as you can see, it gives me power, crit, armor pen. Now, you'll note that enchantment, the Tenebrous enchantment. We'll come back to that a little bit later. For rings, I have a +4 brutality. You could use a +3 brutality, Gemmed Exquisite, anything like that, personalized. Any of those rings will work. Or, of course, +5 rings if you have them. I don't have them for this character, so yeah, I have to use what I have. I also have a personalized Adamant Ring of Piercing, like I showed you. This one gives me power and armor pen, and then I have power and HP in the enchantments. So, as far as a set, artifact set, I have the Black Ice set. This is the one that I chose. It seems to be the best for the Paladin. I have it upgraded to Legendary, which is maxed out. So basically, the cloak gives you power, crit, armor pen, which is pretty good. And if I inspect it, as far as a bonus for having the full set, your powers have a chance to deal additional unresistible damage equal to 10% of your weapon damage. Doesn't help out a whole lot, but it gets the job done, helps you hold aggro, helps you kill things. The belt is excellent because it's split Constitution Charisma, Power Crit Armor Pen. Love it. Both of these pieces, as you can see, are reinforced for action point gain. And then, of course, I have the Black Ice Beholder artifact. Now, the other artifacts for this build are expensive too. Tiamat's Orb of Majesty gives you everything. Power, crit, recovery, armor pen, action point gain. The Heart of the Black Dragon, recovery, armor pen, action point gain. And then, of course, my Sigil of the Devoted. Power, defense, incoming healing bonus, and that's going to be my active. As far as a artifact weapon set, I use the Burning set. I do not like the mod 10.5 Relic set. It's not for support classes. I might switch in mod 11, but we'll cover that in mod 11. For now, the best set, hands down, is the Burning set. And the reason why that set is so good is actually because when you deal damage, when you use your daily, you have a chance to regenerate action points. As you can see, scroll down, when using a daily power, there is a 25% chance. They don't say it, but it works out to about 25% chance of regenerating 25% of your AP immediately. That's just phenomenal. You can't beat the set. Now, as far as enchantments, let's cover those a bit. The Paladin can be pretty expensive. You'll see my weapon enchantment is a Transcendent Plaguefire. Plaguefire is my favorite enchantment because you do additional damage, then you do dot damage, and you also put a debuff on the enemy. It's an awesome enchantment. Helps the team out a lot. Now, for offensive slots, while you're still weaker, you can use Radiance, but eventually you're going to want to use Cruels or Draconic. And the reason is Cruels give you split power and recovery. And if I show you where's my Draconic, I don't know exactly, but Draconic enchantments, here we go. I had to find it. Draconic enchantment gives you power recovery and armor pen. So if you're still low on your armor pen, you'll want to throw in a Draconic enchantment, and this will change. As you can see, I'm mostly using rank 7 and 8 enchantments. So my enchantments are lower level. I will gain a lot of stats as those get upgraded. Now, I still kept one offensive slot, and this is personal preference, whether you want to do it or not, but I kept one offensive slot as a Tenebrous enchantment. When striking foes, you have a chance to deal 3% of your current hit points in necrotic damage. Now, this has a internal 15-second cooldown. It's not a fantastic enchantment, but I like it. That's just personal preference. If you don't like it, you could swap it out for another Radiant or Cruel. Now, defensive slots are going to be pretty much the same thing. You're going to either run Radiance for HP, Azors for defense, or Brutals for HP and defense from the same enchantment. One last enchantment to cover, and then we'll move on. The last enchantment is your armor enchantment. While at a lower item level, you can use Soulforge or Negation. Some people will argue that Negation may be the best enchantment for a Paladin, followed then by Shadowclad. You can use either one of those. For my build and for my preference, I like the Briartwine enchantment. You reflect 2.8% of the damage dealt to you back to your attacker. Now this stacks with Binding Oath, with Divine Protector. Basically, you get to double dip on doing the damage. So that's the reason why I like Briartwine. However, if you're having difficulty surviving, you may wish to swap over to the Negation or to swap over to the Shadowclad. Either one works. Alright, we've covered gear, powers, feats. Let's cover some of the annoying things. Let's cover boons. Now, depending on what you have, if your Paladin is your main or not, you might have more boons than I do. Storm King's Thunder is the most annoying of the campaigns because it's the newest one, so I only have the first boon for that. And I decided to take you gain 2% control resist, because if you get controlled, you're not going to be able to keep up your daily, you're not going to be able to try and perma bubble, and you're just going to get beaten into the ground pretty quick. For the next one, I would recommend that you get the incoming healing bonus. It makes it easier on clerics to heal you. It also helps when you heal yourself with Sanctuary. Then, if you have the next boon, I would recommend that you go with Icy Wrath, because you're usually not missing that much stamina. The last one, when you kill a foe, it's not really that helpful, so I would go with the Glacier Strength. Your max HP is increased. That's pretty much the best thing that I've seen. Then, unfortunately, you have a choice to make on the last three. Potions are useless. And when healing allies, your healing spells have a chance to damage up to 5 enemies. Well, we don't have healing spells, so that's kind of shitty. You can take Chill of Winter, which is pretty good. I recommend that you put at least 1 point into Chill of Winter. And then depending on how much deflect you have, and whether or not you're going for a deflect build, you can put either 1 or 2 points in Frozen Reflection. However, this does not create an infinite feedback loop with Augmented Thayan Bastion. Just keep that in mind. That was changed. Now for the Sharandar campaign. First one, 400 power, Dark Fey Hunter. Second one, Fey Elusiveness, 400 deflect. Third one, Elven Haste. You gain 3% action points, well, faster basically, 3% action point gain. Can't beat that. Elven Ferocity. When striking a foe, you have a chance to deal up to 20,000 arcane damage. If you are having difficulty surviving, another option is Elven Tranquility. When being struck by a foe, you have a chance to heal yourself for 20,000 hit points. And then Fey Thistle. When you deflect an attack, you deal up to 3,000 damage to your attacker. Everything else here is pretty much useless. The only other one that's good is Elvish Fury, but that only applies to you killing a foe, so that's more for solo play than for group dungeoning. Dreadring, one of my favorite ones. Tier 1, 250 power, 250 movement. Tier 2, 400 lifesteal. Tier 3, Forbidden Piercing. You gain 3% resistance ignored. Tier 4, when dealing damage, you have a chance to deal up to 20,000 necrotic damage over a few seconds. After this effect ends, the target receives 25% less healing from spells for 10 seconds. Love this ability. If you are having difficulty surviving, use Regrowth, because this is, again, chance to heal when you take damage. If you use both of them, you can get a lot of healing. So, last boon, Burning Guidance, not that helpful. Endless Consumption could be decent, but not that helpful. The two that I would choose between is either Rampaging Madness, which is really good for a long fight, or Augmented Thayan Bastion, which is what I personally prefer. Augmented Thayan Bastion, when taking damage, you have a chance to generate a shield that absorbs up to 10,000 incoming damage and redirects that damage to a nearby foe. The shield lasts 6 seconds. Pretty good ability. I like it. Icewind Dale, not a whole lot of good boons here. Tier 1, you take Encroaching Tactics, 400 combat advantage bonus. Refreshing Chill, 400 stamina gain. Rapid Thaw, 400 recovery. Cool Resolve, you gain up to 2,000 power based on how much stamina or guard you are missing. For the final boon, Avalanche. When damaged by a foe, chance to gain a stack of Avalanche. At 20 stacks, taking damage will clear the stack and deal up to 15,000 damage to nearby targets. Damage over time effects will not trigger the ability. Underdark. For some reason, it's glitched out for me. I can't do the last quest. Hopefully that'll be fixed later on. Tier 1, Primordial Might. 400 power, 1600 HP. Tier 2, Primordial Regenerist. Or, I don't know, whatever, forget it. 400 lifesteal, 1600 HP. Tier 3, Drow Ambush Tactics. Combat advantage damage bonus is increased by 10%. Tier 4, Dwarven Stamina. You now regen stamina 5% faster. For your last ability, it would be entirely personal preference. I would recommend, if you're having trouble surviving, take the Demons do 5% less damage to you, or Demon Slayer. You have a chance to slay lesser demons outright when attacking them. This is very good for solo play, but not fantastic for a pre-made group. If you're running a pre-made group and you can survive, you're going to want Abyssal Strikes, 10% more damage versus demons. Tyranny of Dragons. This is a old campaign, but a very good one. Dragon Claws, 400 power. Dragon Shadow, 400 deflect. Draconic Armbreaker, 400 armor pen. Dragon's Greed, 400 lifesteal rating. Then, if you have the Linu's Favor, 2 points into Dragon's Fury for 6.5% increased critical hit severity. 1 point into Dragon's Thirst for a straight 3% increased lifesteal. That is a 3% increase to your lifesteal chance. For your guild, you're going to want to run your Power Boon. And then depending on personal preference, really, you're going to want to run either control resist, hit points, because, well, face it, HP, that's pretty nice to have, or defense. For right now, I'm running defense until my companion has enough defense on him to warrant switching over to the bonus hit points. Maze Engine, you're going to want Abyssal Siphoning. You gain 5% lifesteal severity. Demonic Resilience. Control effects will now have a 5% shorter duration when applied to you. You gain action points 3% faster from Demonic Swiftness. And again, for the final tier, it's really up to you. Either Baphomet's Might, or you could take Displace Fate. When below 30% health, you gain a shield, increasing damage resistance by 60% for 3 seconds. It's not really a great ability, but it's kind of like a oh crap, save you, get out of jail free card type thing. For Elemental Evil, you're going to want Wave of Force, Power and HP. Earth's Renewal, Regeneration and HP. Blazing Resilience, Recovery and HP. And then Wall of Wind. When taking damage, you have a chance to heal yourself for up to 24,000 hit points over a few seconds. After the effect ends, your recovery is increased by 1,000 for 10 seconds. And you can't go wrong with recovery. So that covers all of your boons. Now let's talk companions. This is where things get very, very fun. If you remember my Mod 7 build, I basically had this little guy right here, Mr. Stone, an Ion Stone of Might. Decent companion to start off with, not bad, don't get me wrong, gets the job done. Also, the active bonus gives you 2% stamina regen. However, in the current mod, it is actually better to have a striker companion with bonding stones. So, I have 3 companions that I'm going to keep, 2 that I will not keep on for endgame, but I haven't been able to afford the ones for endgame. The 2 that I won't keep for endgame are going to be the Ion Stone and the Battlefield Medic. But for right now, they're not bad. I get 2% increased stamina regen and 6% incoming healing. These 2 companions are cheap to get. Now let's cover the companions that are absolutely needed, in my opinion, but are the most expensive, possibly the hardest ones to get, so I can understand if you don't have them. For your summoned companion as a tank, I believe literally the best in slot companion you can get is going to be the Moonbow. Now, I named mine Moonbow, but it's actually Priestess of Sayanine Moonbow. Comes at blue, and it is a fantastic companion for tanks, especially once companion gear comes out in Mod 11. So right now you can tell I don't have super good bondings. I have a bonding stone rank 11 and then 2 rank 8s. Now, once I have full rank 12 bondings, I'll be overpowered as hell. Right now my companion has 1,985 defense, 697 recovery, 280 armor pen, 315 crit strike, and 1,328 power. I am using an Elven Assault necklace with a Cruel rank 8 so that it gives me power and recovery. I'm using a Ring of Sudden Deflect plus 4 with a Dark Enchantment rank 8 in the offensive slot for the extra armor pen and a Azor enchantment for the defense. Then I have an Elven Assault belt for power and crit, also with an Azor enchantment. Again, I only have like rank 8s. This companion's active bonus is Deflect. Now, some of you might look at this and say, ew, that's disgusting. This is actually fantastic and, like I said, best in slot for supporting your team. The reason why it is you have this very cool ability. It's called Moonbeams. Reduces critical hit chance for enemies within 20 feet by 1% per companion level, and increases critical hit chance for allies within 20 feet by 0.5% per companion level for 6 seconds. Now, the reason why this is OP, and this companion fluctuates greatly in price. You have a chance of pulling it out of almost any dungeon chest, but it's a rare drop. It goes on a cheap day for 400k, on an expensive day for 2 or 3 million. It greatly varies. So just be careful and take your time in getting it. Right now, my companion is rank 30 which means I will buff my allies by 15% crit chance and debuff the enemies by 30% crit chance. So, fantastic. If you can level it up to purple and upgrade it, you can get the Mastery Leader, which is really good. But I also have Full Moon, increases the duration of Moon Shadow and Moonbeams by 50%, which means that Moonbeams now does not last for 6 seconds. It now lasts for 9 seconds, but only has a 6-second cooldown, giving you virtually 100% uptime. Literally, best companion in the game. I guarantee that it's going to go up in price because pretty much the companion that every tank should have. Another companion, this is optional. It's up to you. This is only for the active bonus, and this is the Blacksmith. Not really a fantastic companion, but pretty cool. Was ninja nerfed, so it's not as good as it once was. In my opinion, still pretty good. 15% chance to reflect 10% of the damage taken. If the same target is hit 4 times, it will reflect 3 times the damage. I like that. We're a tank. We're going to be getting hit a lot. Then I have my Ion Stone for the stamina regen, the Medic for the incoming healing bonus, and the last absolutely required companion, in my opinion, is the Rust Monster. Ugly companion typically sells for 500 to a mil, depending upon what the market is going for. You can also get it out of the Glorious Resurgence Epic Companion Pack. With that being said, its active bonus is on damage taken, 25% chance to inflict a 5% damage debuff on the attacker, stacks up to 3 times. This is a very nice companion because it will reduce the damage that the enemies deal by up to 15%, allowing you to, well, tank them easier. With that being said, there are other companions that you can use. Some people like the Cockatrice, some people like the Chicken, some people like the Liland. It's completely up to you, whatever you have. Use what you can while you can. Basically, until you can afford the Rust Monster, the Blacksmith, and the Priestess Cyanine Moonbow. Last but not least, we have mounts. Now, your mounts will probably be one of the last things that you get. There's a couple powers that you're going to want. As you can see, I have a few different epic mounts here. And then I also have a blue mount and a green mount because that's all I could afford on this character. So I am using Quick Action. Your daily power grants 15% of your total action points over 10 seconds. This is a bonus you can get from the Embellished Apparatus Agond or the Gorgon. The better one to have would be the Legacy Snail or the Coastal Flail Snail, if you can afford them. But those are very expensive items, so I understand if you don't have them. Right now, I'm using Protector's Camaraderie. Whenever your summoned companion attacks, you gain 3% of your power and defense for 10 seconds. This effect can stack up to 4 times. On this character, I have a Regal Insignia of Prosperity, Aggression, and another Aggression. Then I have Magistrate's Restraint. Whenever you perform a crit strike, your target will gain a stack, and that stack deals psychic damage equal to 10% of your power. Again, it helps you keep aggro. I have a Barbed Insignia of Skill and an Enlightened Insignia of Mastery. Then I have Artificer's Persuasion. Whenever you use an artifact power, your recovery, movement, action point gain, and stamina gain are increased by 10% of your power for 15 seconds. That's awesome. With a Barbed Insignia of Dominance, Illuminated Insignia of Aggression, and Barbed Insignia of Skill. I also have Barbarian's Revelry because this is the best mount bonus that I had to choose from. And whenever you perform a critical hit, you are healed for 1.5% of your maximum HP. The effect can only occur once every 2 seconds. That uses a Crescent and 2 Enlightens. So I have a Crescent Courage, Enlightened Insignia of Vigor, and Enlightened Insignia of Mastery. And then I have the Embellished Apparatus Agond. The reason why I have this mount on, even though it's not helpful as far as its insignia bonus, is because I have nothing else at the time to replace it with that's actually good. Cavalry's Warning is really good if you have a legendary mount. I do not on this character. So I just have it for the Crescent Insignia of Skill, the Enlightened Insignia of Mastery, and the Barbed Insignia of Dominance. Now that covers just about everything. How to build it, powers, feats, boons, companions, mounts, all of that good stuff. And I appreciate you bearing with me. We're going to do just 2 more things real quick. And the reason why I'm going to do it is I'm going to show you what you need. So let me go to the auction house real quick. See if I can buy one. Just have to search for the right thing real quick. This is going to be the food item that you need. Oh, come on. I didn't need the space there, game. Basically, you're going to want, whenever you're running around, to either use a power potion, recovery potion, or defense potion. Those are easy to pick up. Maybe let me go to... Let me just put in S. I think I was under the wrong category. Yeah, I was. That's my bad, actually. I was under the wrong category of item. I have it on uncommon, but it needs to be common. What was I thinking? There we go. Watermelon sorbet. Or sorbet. Sherbet. Whatever you want to call it. There's shit tons of it on the market. I'm just going to buy one to show you the reason why you want to use this. And this is just stuff that you run on your dailies. Or you run, you know, when you're running around in a dungeon. I take a superior potion of power, that's 1000 power. I take a watermelon sherbet, which is power recovery. Awesome. It grants you 10% more of your power and 10% more of your recovery. So I use that, and then I use a couple other things when I actually get into dungeons. So I am going to go ahead and queue for a dungeon and see what pops up. We're only going to do a basic one because of the fact that, well, I don't know the level of the team that I will get. Now, as a tank, you usually get relatively quick queues, but it is possible to get a really long queue, especially now because people don't have a lot of keys. So since people don't have a lot of keys, you may wish to queue up for more than one thing. You could queue up for something simple. That's why I have Shores of Torren listed right there. And I actually got Dread Legion. I'm fine with Dread Legion. Dread Legion is a little bit easier of a skirmish than Shores of Torren is. It just depends on what queues faster. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I like to play this character. Now, because I'm in an actual dungeon, I'm going to take an Elixir of Fate, which you get out of the Vault of Piety. I'm also going to take the Sun Lord's Gift Elixir. You get that from the same place. And if I had one from Sharandar, I would take a Potion of Heroism. That increases your stats. As you can see, my stat rating has been increased. So for those of you that haven't seen this skirmish, it's a pretty easy one. You don't have to be super high item level to tank it. I do have the required item level to do FBI, and I could do FBI, but it's very difficult. So at my item level, I prefer to stay in the tier 1s and the tier 2s. Now what you're going to want to do is, depending upon your team, go ahead and get into combat. And right now, I've got a pretty OP wizard with me, so it's not really a problem. But if you need to shield your team, you're going to go ahead and use Divine Protector, Binding Oath, Templar's Wrath, hit your RB button, and go ahead and start meleeing the shit out of the enemies, continuing to drop bubble every time that it comes off cooldown if needed, especially depending upon the fight. Now you'll notice that I'm using Circle of Power because Circle of Power has been changed to give me a damage bonus as a paladin, but to give my team a defense bonus. So as long as my team stays close and they stay on the Circle of Power, they will receive a damage resistance bonus as well. And you know what? I'll take the enchantment. Right now I'm pretty overpowered for it, so I like to do my taunt, go ahead and use Binding Oath. That forces everything to attack me. Right now this team is so strong. I don't know what their item levels are, that I really don't need to be using the Divine Protector. I can actually use an offensive daily, but that is entirely 100% up to you. and how you like to play. So as you can see, I'll go ahead and use an offensive daily. Make sure that I have my temporary HP, which the bad thing is the moment you get out of combat, you will lose that temporary HP, even though you see I have 250,000 temporary HP. Sometimes some of the mobs you'll lose aggro on. It's not really a big deal if you lose aggro on a mob, especially to, let's see, 2.7k wizard, 3.6k great weapon fighter. That explains why we're doing so much damage. 2.2 great weapon fighter, and another wizard, that's 3.4. So actually it's a hell of a lot of a build here. Now you will want to notice one thing that I'm doing differently is making sure to always keep 2 charges of my divine call, and depending upon the dungeon that you do, you may wish to make sure that you swap divine call before you use your daily. If you're going to use an offensive daily, make sure you have judge before you use it. This way you do 35% more damage. In this dungeon, it doesn't really matter that much. Bad thing is you do lose your temporary HP the moment you get out of combat. That's one reason why sometimes I will use a different power outside of Circle of Power. It's just personal preference though. So very easy to pop Circle of Power, get his attention, go ahead and pop Divine Protector, so my team is basically as shielded as they're going to get, and you're done. Wrecked. Easy to do, very easy to do. You'll notice Binding Oath will break here in a minute, and I will take some damage or no damage, and there you go. There's your rewards. Super simple, depending upon your team, easy to do. I did 2.6 million damage. I took 65,000 damage. No one went down, still healed for a good amount. So for the purposes of a low level skirmish, this was incredibly easy and incredibly successful. Now, if you wanted to do a higher level dungeon, which you'd be more than welcome to do, Shores, Valindra's, Lair of Lostmouth, Temple, Cragmire, Grey Wolf, or even Castle Never, any of these I can also tank with this build. I just prefer to go in with a good team. FBI is the only dungeon that I really struggle in with this build, but I do somewhat still prefer to play the Paladin as a healer. I think it's just entirely personal preference and up to you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, make sure you leave a comment. Otherwise, smash the like button, share the video. It greatly helps out with the searchability of videos here on YouTube. And I appreciate you sticking with me for almost a 50-minute video. So subscribe for more content. Tell all your friends. Until next time, stay frosty.